Today on Build Beautiful, I'm joined by someone who understands how movement across oceans, disciplines, and decades can shape a life of beauty. Peter Mikic began in fashion, studying at RMIT in Melbourne, before landing in London in the 1990s, a city that would become both his canvas and his home. Since transitioning into interiors in 2006, his name has become synonymous with elegant risk, the kind of design that feels both composed and free. His studio's work spans grand residences, hotels, restaurants, yachts, and private jets across the globe. Along the way, he has been recognised in Architectural Digest's AD100, House & Garden's Top 100, and Elle Decoration's Finest, a quiet nod to a body of work that speaks volumes. But it's not the accolades that define him. It's his eye, his feeling, the depth of craftsmanship that only comes from a life lived fully across borders and forms. This conversation is about that life, the bold move, the long game, the deep knowing of materials and meaning. It's about building something lasting and doing it with heart. Welcome to my conversation with Peter.
Oh, I love that introduction.
Oh, I'm so glad.
That is the sweetest, nicest introduction I've heard in a very long time.
I'm so glad you liked it.
Really.
Thank you.
Oh, it's a pleasure.
We're here in London, your now hometown.
Yes.
And I'm really grateful for you to take time out of your super busy schedule. I know you just opened a hotel that you've been working on
yes.
for years.
For several years.
It's been a busy time for you. So it means a lot that you've taken time out.
I just also want to say thank you very much for inviting me here.
Oh.
And also, this is my first podcast. So you have to bear with me because I'm a little bit nervous.
I know, but you're in good hands, I promise. We met last year in Milan.
We did.
And I feel like before I'd met you, I'd known you for such a long time because our mutual friend Tonka had told me all about you. And when I met you, I think it was easy for me to think that you would be this elusive character, this, big, bold person. But in fact, you were just this beautiful, calm, lovely, peaceful person and not at all what I expected. So I really enjoyed spending time with you last year.
That was so sweet. Me too. I felt so comfortable with you. And, also Tonka is just, she's such a wonderful girl and I love her dearly.
Love her dearly. Absolutely. But let's trace back to Queanbeyan.
Yes, my hometown.
Your hometown.
So my hometown, I have to say, Queanbeyan doesn't have a great reputation, but I do kind of love it because in a way that sort of formed me. And I'm kind of proud that I came from such a small town. And, back then, I didn't really know much about the world. I was very much, I had loving parents who were immigrants. And so I was first generation Australian. And so I just sort of went with the flow.
Yeah.
I just, I was a kid. I was very much into my bikes and, but from a very early age, and I don't know how and when it started, but I do remember, picking up, sketch pads.
Really?
At a very early age, way back then. I remember sort of aged 4 or 5, but I remember the first sort of sketch that I showed my dad, who was a builder. And you know how normally kids sort of used to draw sort of, sketches of basic homes with the little chimney. Mine was like a 2-story house with columns on the front with extensions on the side.
Wow.
And
it's almost like it was in your DNA.
It was in my DNA. And it was sort of like this weird thing. And I kept on sketching, house facades.
Really?
And so I had this deep fascination right from a very early age. And then I moved into painting. But it was just all kind of, it was just sort of organic, in its development.
And is it your parents' influence, do you think, or is it because they were migrants from former Yugoslavia? Can you trace back that connection to design? Is it a cultural thing, or do you think it was more your father because he was in construction?
I don't really have that sort of connection to that country particularly. However, that my dad was a builder and my mum was very, she was pretty glamorous and she did dress incredibly well. Gosh, I remember from a very early age, I noticed the way she dressed from a very early age, and I noticed the way my dad worked from a very early age. And I think honestly, I have a combination of the two of them. I am 50% my dad,
really
50% my mom. And I think about that all the time.
What is it that you're thinking about when you reflect back on who you've become?
My dad, he was very humble. He wasn't interested in, any sort of accolades or anything like that. He was more interested in quality of work. I remember going to sites with him and I remember him, checking things, the way the bricks were laid or the way something was installed. And I remember, him and he was never an angry person. So he always explained himself and what he wanted and how he wanted it. And that was really interesting.
And do you think you've taken some of that approach into how you operate now?
I think so. I think if you do whatever you want, you've got to explain yourself. And it has taken me a long time. Obviously, there are moments where, you're busy and you're running around and you're trying to sort of, deal with design, as you know what it's like, on building sites. And, there are moments where you obviously feel like, I just want it to sort of end. But the truth is, I think I've, over my sort of stretch of interior design period, I find a very clear explanation is always best.
Yes, clear is kind.
Clear is kind. And be calm. And I always sort of think to myself, treat people the way you want to be treated. So, what's in your head may not be in their head. So try and explain what you are thinking and the way you imagine this detail to be executed. Because if you don't explain it, they will interpret it in a completely different way.
Absolutely.
And also, to be honest, sometimes when things like that happen, I am also pleasantly surprised, because no one's perfect.
Absolutely.
No one's perfect. And I quite like sort of just the discovering of, a different way of achieving a final result.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So did your upbringing in Australia influence your eye, do you think? Like, do you feel when you look at your body of work, do you trace any of it back to
I think so.
The foundation?
Yes, I think so. I think that, I think for me, color was a big thing in my life. My mom was always, dressed in colors. She was obsessed with yellows and reds and she was always playing around with color. And I think the main thing is probably the light in Australia. The light was clear. And so the colors were vivid. And I really do think that has played a huge part in my passion for color and light.
Because I do think your work is very much defined by color and passion and that beautiful balance of the two. You do it so beautifully.
I wonder if that sort of leads me to that playfulness.
Yes.
I wonder. I don't quite know, but I kind of like that. I think that when you look back, I think because I was quite a playful child and, I was always into sort of games and, bikes and, being outdoors, we were always, as it's like growing up in Australia.
Absolutely.
We were always outdoors.
Always.
I remember the only sort of electric game I had was that tennis game that went, that one? That was, that one? That sort of, clearly I'm much older. But,
no.
It was an outdoor life. And I think that whole playfulness maybe comes from that.
Yeah, absolutely. So Queanbeyan led you to Melbourne, and you studied.
Queanbeyan led me to Narrabundah College in Canberra.
Oh, first,
okay. And which I loved. And I remember I checked myself out of high school in Queanbeyan.
Really?
Yes, I was going on to college in Queanbeyan at Caraba High, and I remember day one I turned up. It's like 11th, sixth form, fifth form.
Yes.
And I thought, oh my God, what am I doing here? And so after 4 years in the same school. And then I thought, do you know what? I'm going to take the bus to across the border, go to Canberra, and I'm going to go check myself into another college.
And you did
without telling my mom.
How was that received?
And I went and enrolled myself. I went back
extraordinary.
I went back to Canberra High, checked out.
Really?
Went home and told my mom I've moved to another school. And she said, how are you going to get there? And I said, I don't know, maybe by bus. I don't know. We'll find a way.
And how did you get there?
By bus.
By bus.
And it was great. And it was a very creative college. Narrabundah was quite a creative college, had photography, it had industrial design, it had a really good art course, illustrations. And I loved all of that. It was so good.
So one would say you took your destiny into your own hands.
I did.
You really did. And you've been doing it ever since.
I did that. And then I went down and then I remember, so my mom said, gosh, now that you've finished, I said, I want to do fashion. I know, first I wanted to do graphic design. So I took a year off and I got a job as a graphic designer, which I did. And I loved that. But halfway through that year, I thought, do you know what? I'm going to do fashion.
What moved you towards fashion? Was there a particular moment or a particular thing?
I think I dressed in a very 80s way and I was quite into fashion. And I think that was my mum's side first.
Yes.
So I was very into fashion and I loved my baggy trousers and I loved my hair. And I remember bleaching my hair and I did all sorts of crazy things. And so I then just decided to go to, I would apply to fashion college. And my mum said, go to Sydney because it means you're only 3 hours away. And I thought to myself, oh dear, let's go to Melbourne. It's 9 hours. It's much further away. So, but I never told her this. So I never told her where I was going, but I did then I got into my car and I drove to Melbourne. I booked myself into RMIT. I went for an interview and I talked my way through this interview because my portfolio was terrible. And I was in there for 45 minutes chatting about fashion and all the things I loved and the people I loved and all these things. And I left and went back home, and then a couple of weeks later received a letter saying that I got in. Then I told my mum,
I'm moving to Melbourne.
She goes, oh my God, that's amazing. When? Tomorrow.
Oh, that's extraordinary. And when you then finished your course in RMIT, and is it at that point that you co-founded your menswear label, Stonewood and Bryce?
No, so straight from college, during college, I entered this competition for the Australian Wool Corporation.
I remember that competition.
And I won Victoria's Women's Wear Design of the Year. And then from that, a really lovely author and fashion journalist called Lee Tulloch, who is hopefully still based in Australia, I'm not quite sure, but she put my name forward for a job with a designer called John Capel. I don't know if you remember him. He had at that stage, had quite a lot of stores in Australia, and he was like the most international designer that we had. And I got a job with him straight away, and it was great. And I was with him for like 2 years.
Okay.
And I loved John and his partner Charles, and so that was great. And then I just decided again. One day, I woke up and thought, I'm going to go to London.
Just
like that.
Like that.
I went that day. I booked a ticket. I booked a one-way ticket.
A one-way ticket. So you knew.
I just went and booked a one-way ticket for the week after.
So have you made all your decisions like that?
Like that.
Just from
like that.
A deep sense of knowing and intuition.
Just sort of following my gut.
Wow.
Always.
That's extraordinary. So you came to London, one-way ticket. How did your mum take that?
She was like, I think by this stage, they were just like, he knows what he's doing. I mean, clearly she was sort of sad that I was leaving Australia, but I think at that point she was like, go do all your things.
Do the things.
Do everything you want to do. And, they were always really supportive. And that was the most amazing thing. And I probably think that's why I was like that. I was very much like, I knew they would have my back.
Well, I think when you're supported in that way, it gives you a confidence to try.
Yeah.
And there's no fear of failure because you know you have this soft landing.
Exactly.
Yeah. Wow. That's really beautiful.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love the soft landing because that is
true, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely. I feel that too with my life and decisions. It's like I could try things, even though sometimes, you're never sure, but you have to try. Otherwise, what's the point in living, really?
Yes.
I want to ask you about your years in fashion. What do you think it taught you about storytelling through material? Because I think your work now as a designer is very much storytelling. So what do you think those years in fashion sort of taught you?
I'm so pleased you said that. I'm so pleased you brought the storytelling up because I always sort of felt like design is about storytelling. I think you need to say something through design, whether it's, someone's quiet retreat at home, whether it's someone's nightclub in their basement, whether it's a child's playroom or a formal dining room. I think there needs to be something there that makes it interesting and also relatable, to either mostly the clients, but also they do, it's up to you and I to interpret their vision. And so I find sort of storytelling important. And recently on this hotel that I worked on in New York called the Faina, I worked with Alan Faina, who is a great storyteller. And he said, Peter, nothing is valid without a story. I mean, what's the point of saying anything if you don't have a story behind it? And that just, it really resonated with me. And so I think I always had it in me, but I think he brought it out in me.
It's almost like he articulated it.
Correct.
Yeah, because, when you look at your work, it very much to me is telling a story, every room, every space. So so maybe just hearing it articulated sort of
I think it brought it to life. And I think the other thing is, I think fashion and interiors go so well together. Obviously, they're both creative industries, but I think what I really, really learned from fashion is, you can always push the boundaries in fashion. Because you were sort of expected to sort of create something new all the time. And I think that is what I try and do with every project. I try and make every project slightly different. It may have a thread to it. I'm not quite sure, but I sort of always love having just sort of pushing myself that little bit more, be a little bit more adventurous with colors, and textures and sort of style as well. I think you want to progress. You want to move forward.
Absolutely. Otherwise you get bored.
I
want to stay in fashion for a moment because your label Stonewood and Bryce was very successful.
It was. I loved it.
Like when I read about it, your collections were shown in Milan, sold at Harvey Nichols, Barney's New York, Bergdorf Goodman. You had clients such as David Beckham and Jude Law.
Correct.
Why?
David, yes.
Is that right? David Beckham?
Yeah.
Jude Law?
Yeah.
Anyone else?
Robbie Williams.
No way. I think I saw him on the streets of London.
Westlife. We used to dress Westlife for their concerts.
That's amazing. So clearly that was a very successful venture.
It was, again, it was very playful, It was sort of, we did design the collections and we did, I sketched them up and I did it with a very dear friend of mine called Theo van der Zom, and we set this brand up together. And we were both in fashion college together.
Oh, right, at RMIT, and came to London together?
No, he arrived here before me.
Right.
And we did have a lot of fun. We sort of didn't really know what we were doing. And it just we thought, let's just start a fashion brand because we kind of couldn't really find what we wanted. And it just sort of developed and, I made the patterns and he did a lot of the styling and we created these things together, and we used to sort of play with, so we'd receive fabrics, and then we used to sort of play with prints on the fabrics, try and sort of develop those a bit more. So it was also quite a creative path for us. It was a lovely kind of journey that we were having together. It was great. And then someone said, gosh, you should think about having a show in Milan. It's like, gosh, okay, let's just do it. And so it was another one of those sort of weird moments, like, let's just go for it this season. Let's just do it.
Just do it.
And bizarrely, I don't know how this happened, but we managed to get onto the Milan Fashion Council.
How do you do that?
2 young Australian boys in Milan with Dolce & Gabbana, with Prada, with Gucci.
Wow.
Here we are showing in Milan. I mean, we were on the schedule.
That's what dreams are made of,
and we
Peter.
were like sort of 2 kids doing this brand. We got ourselves agents, and we it was just sort of, it was kind of great, again, it felt like we had nothing to lose, but we had this sort of, both had this sort of soft landing, so it was kind of great. But we both I think because we didn't really have any sort of pressures on us back then, we were sort of playing around with various things, like trying to be as adventurous as we could possibly be. So, for example, we would show in underground snooker halls. We managed to get permission from the Milan City Council to do a catwalk show at the central station, which was amazing. Various kind of weird venues. And sort of, we were sort of known for being slightly quirky and a bit odd.
Fashion forward. Yeah. So why transition to interiors then? Because I know you got a commission by Candy Brothers.
Yes.
To design their yacht uniforms. Is that right?
That's right. We were commissioned to do uniforms for a boat they were working on. And on the girls' cocktail hour jackets, I thought, instead of doing, because they said to us, they have these sort of shirts and these things to wear during cocktail hour, we thought it'd be kind of cool to have these very kind of relaxed little kimono jackets, like very sort of 1970s Yves Saint Laurent. And on the back, we thought it'd be kind of pretty to have these Japanese flying cranes hand embroidered on the back. They looked so beautiful, the cranes on the back of these silk kimonos. And then they asked us to do the entire dining room wall in, this embroidered motif, which was really beautiful. And that's how it sort of started.
So when you took that job on, at that point, were you envisioning a life as an interior designer, or do you think it just sort of happened organically? Or
I think it just happened organically. It was like a natural kind of progression. And I think that it's funny because I sort of felt like that part of my life was my mum coming out of me, and then I felt like the next part was my dad.
Isn't that amazing?
So I kind of loved that transition. I have to say, I got quite excited. And I remember I was working on that project with Candy, and they, gave me more and more work. I never actually worked for them. I was very independent. And I then was asked by another friend of mine to work on a project for her. So, and I thought to myself, gosh, I've never actually done a project outside Candy, so I really didn't have any idea what I was doing. And I said, yes, gosh, I'd love to do it. And that's how I got my very first commission.
That's amazing. And how did you navigate the shift? Because starting something new can be daunting. So did you, obviously, if how did you build your network of suppliers? How did you navigate that process?
I think I was so lucky on that very first project because she already had a team together. So there was an architect, there's a project manager, there was a fantastic team, and they all knew this was my very first project.
Oh,
and they were very, very, very supportive. You know, they explained how things were done. No one tried to, you know, undermine me or belittle me or, you know, because of my lack of experience and knowledge. They were all really supportive. And I found that kind of amazing and inspiring. And I felt so supported in that role. And, you know, I remember sort of, because I didn't really have any interior design experience, I mean, literally none, I was just sort of coming up with ideas. You know, we didn't have Pinterest back then at all.
Nothing.
I remember there's nothing like that. It was just sort of just anything that would come into my head. I used to sketch. I used to put things together. I used to put fabrics together, walk, you know, go to Chelsea Harbour.
One might say you're the true traditional interior designer.
And then I had these presentations, and I remember sort of bizarrely kind of trying to explain myself to the client first and explaining what I wanted to do. And she was like, "Oh my God, that's actually fantastic. I really love it. And, you know, please go ahead and do it." And she sort of said yes to almost everything. And I remember I found an artist somewhere. I don't even know where I found this person, but they drilled sort of holes and they created this kind of like scene, like a Dugournet scene, but on wood paneling, and they drilled the holes. So the negative and they
gave you the pattern.
They backlit it.
Right.
And they gave you the pattern through the millions and millions of little drill holes of a woodland scene. So it was kind of like, I don't even know how this all happened, but, and then I said, gosh, wouldn't it be really nice to do that whole scene inside the WC in this project? And they were going, "Oh my God, you're crazy." But yes, that would be really fantastic. And they actually did it. They contacted the artist, they got the thing done, they installed it, it looked beautiful. I still have the photographs.
So going back to that time, sort of pre-Pinterest, pre-imagery, which we're inundated with now, do you think there was a reliance on words and communication?
Yes, I think.
How did you communicate those concepts and ideas?
I think I was lucky because I did the fashion, because I did a fashion course and I did fashion, and because fashion is all about sketching. Yes. It's all about sort of, it's about how you feel and what comes through at that moment in time and what you think looks good. And I really, truly, I mean, honestly, I really didn't look very much at fashion magazines. And even today, do you know, I don't really look at many magazines today because I sort of feel like I don't want anything to sort of stop the creativity.
Yeah.
Or influence
process.
Me too much, you know. I like looking at designers who sort of manufacture products, because I think that's quite inspiring. And I love artists' works, you know, people, you know.
With the designers who manufacture, because I know you do some product development as well.
A little bit.
And is that something you want to do more of?
I do.
I'm jumping ahead a little bit here, but
that's okay.
Since we're there.
I do love it. You know, I do love product design because I did do product design at Narrabeen College. And so I do have a passion for it. And I think it's the sketching part. And, you know, honestly, 90% of the things I sketch go nowhere. Honestly, they're in the top of my drawers. Actually, to be honest, probably in the bottom of my drawer. But, you know, sometimes one or two things do make it through. And I always say to the people in my office, I always say to them, look, you know, when you come and work here, I want you to be as creative as you can possibly be. Okay. Feel free to take time to sketch, to do all the things, research, you know, do whatever you can to be as creative as you can. You know, I don't want you to sit on Pinterest, although Pinterest is a great tool.
No, of course.
I think Pinterest is a great tool. And also, just quickly talking about Pinterest, I mean, I think that it helps our clients visualize what you're trying to explain. So absolutely, it has a valid place in design. the only thing is, I always say to people, if you are going to use Pinterest, try and look at the detailed images of Pinterest. So instead of going, wow, this is a great room, and look, it's all been done up, and no room will ever look like that room. I mean, it will just never happen. However, if you show a client a sofa, you know, in a red fabric with a green cushion, you can explain, this is how a green cushion looks on a red sofa. Do you know what I mean?
Explain a concept.
It can explain a concept. It can explain a detail really well. Anyway, going back to people in my office who are, you know, trying to encourage them to be like as creative as they can be. And I always say to them, look, not everything I do makes it through. And please do not be offended if not everything you do makes it through, because that is just the way things work. And we can't always guess what the client wants. In the end, you know, they may like it or they may not like it. But the point is that you've created something. So,
and how do you manage that process of client feedback when it's not received the way you imagine it to be received? How do you deal with, let's call it, failure, rejection?
Can I say something? It happens all the time.
Are you surprised? Because I imagine when you're at the level that you're at and you've done the projects that you've done over the years, that you almost feel, and it's a perception of a perception, but you almost feel like you've earned the right to put a concept together and for that to just be approved first go. But it doesn't happen, does it?
I tell you what I do, which I love. I have backups all the time. All the time. So when I present, I always make sure I've got a second option and a third option. And in the past, I used to do that terrible thing, which was like, I'd have a really good option, a not so good option, and a bad option. And always thinking to myself, surely they won't go for the bad option. And sometimes they did go for the bad. So I learned that pretty quickly way back when. But now I have 3 good options.
Right.
And so not everyone will like my shade of pink, which I love. And I know the pink I love, and I know the yellow I love. And not everyone likes it. So I always have my backups. And do you know what? This is their project. This is their home. You know, give them what they want and make sure it looks fantastic no matter what piece they choose. Make it look great, because that is your job.
Absolutely.
You know,
that's good advice, right?
Really good advice. And make sure, do things which are right so they don't have to think about it. Make sure those wall lights are at the correct height. Make sure the sofa is the correct seat height. Make sure the coffee table is correct. They don't really need to know all of those things, but if they want to change the color of the pink, change the color of the pink. Don't fight it.
Do you learn to almost not decompartmentalize, but you just pull yourself out of the equation a little and really guide the client to achieve?
I've learned not to be offended.
Yeah, that's good.
I've learned, you know, in the grand scheme of things, this is something which is so personal. And I think also, you know, to be honest, they have taught me a lot as well. I had a client recently, well, not recently, a few years ago, and she had this really wonderful project, and I was up against 3 other people. And I remember she called me and she goes, Peter, you know, I just love you so much. You know, we met a few times. I love you. You're so good to be with, and you're so calm, and you're so, you know, you love I can see you love what you do. And I said, oh gosh, that's great. But where's the but? I didn't get the job. And I said, and then she goes, but you know what? I don't like all your color. I think it's just too much for me. So would you be willing to work with me and make sure that it's much calmer? You know, we work with textures, we work with sort of much softer colors. And I go, gosh, yes, I'd love to, because A, I love you, and B, I love the project, and I think it's going to look fantastic. She taught me so much about restraining yourself, sort of really thinking about, it was a house with lots of beige. We managed to get a little bit of soft pinks and soft sort of blues in there, but it was all about texture.
And would you say that was the
she taught me a lot.
Yeah, first project where you focused on texture over color and pattern?
First project, yes. It was kind of, and so going back to my thing, clients can teach you a lot. And I honestly believe, no matter who it is, your clients, your friends, people you meet on the street, people you see on the street, I honestly believe there's something you can learn from everyone. I look at people and see how they dress, what color shoe they're wearing on the street, with what skirt, what trouser. I look at their hair, I look at their sunglasses. I like observing. So, and I truly believe you can learn from other people.
Oh, I agree completely. That's why this whole podcast exists. So I love that. I love that. I want to talk about your practice.
Yes.
Because it's a global practice. It's extraordinary. It is. You've worked everywhere. You've worked all over the world. And I think it's amazing. It's so inspiring to me. And I truly, that's really one of the big reasons why I wanted to do and create Build Beautiful, was to listen to these beautiful stories of courage and entrepreneurism and creativity. And when you look back at this business that you've created, do you ever stop and reflect and think, I did this?
No, I
don't. Can we now?
Is that terrible?
Well, I mean, I don't think it's terrible. I think it's very normal, but I'd love you to take a moment. What do you think? What are your thoughts about your journey so far and the opportunities that have come your
honestly,
way or you've created?
I feel like, as you know, being creative, it's a very emotional feeling you have inside. And I do honestly find I have moments where I find it really daunting, trying to there are moments where I just sort of can't quite put it together. And there are moments where it just sort of comes together.
You're talking conceptually when you're working on a project.
Yes. And so
that's the creative process.
I find, I think I'm also quite hard on myself because I always want everything to be just perfect. I think everyone does. And so there are moments when, during a project installation where I think, gosh, that looks really good, or gosh, that could have been better. And so then I'm quite hard on myself in that respect, but I find that when I finish a project, I don't always love it.
Initially,
yes,
when it's
initially
complete.
I don't, because it's not about the project. The client always gives, touch wood, is always happy, which is great. It's more about me, inside thinking I could have done better. And next time I will do better.
So where do you think that comes from? That sense of it's not quite right, it's not quite perfect, I must do better.
I must do better. I do that all the time. I must do better, which is why I have a drawer filled with sketches of tables and chairs. I must do better. I feel I don't want to be exposed for something that's not good. So
this brings me to my next question, which we've talked about before this recording, about imposter syndrome. Let's talk about that, because I think
I have that.
It's interesting, because I think I was saying to you that, I'd speak to lots of women, and women always say, men don't have imposter syndrome. They always sort of just walk through life and there's confidence there. But actually, I think you tell a very different story.
I do have it. I do have it. And I feel like sometimes I think to myself, gosh, I feel like I'm lucky to be there. I remember my first meeting in New York for the hotel, and I walk into the room and there's about sort of 30 people in a boardroom table, and I sort of had to explain myself and explain the hotel to them. And they're all sitting there going, but you haven't done a hotel before. And I said, no, but I promise you, I will put everything I have into this hotel.
Mm-hmm.
And I sat down and I thought, oh my God, what am I doing here? I'm way beyond my expertise and way beyond anything. And I felt so insecure. And I thought, someone's going to discover I know nothing. But in a way, I kind of like that. I like the self-doubt sometimes. I think it's a good thing.
It's almost healthy.
It's healthy. And I think it makes you want to do better. And I think it keeps going back to that. I think I never want to feel like, I've achieved something so great that that's the end of that road. I always want to feel like there's something better. I can always do a little bit better than that previous project.
Well,
or differently.
Yeah. Well, it's growth, right? Because it's where the fear is where the growth is.
Yes.
And so when you're in a situation where you're in a boardroom filled with multiple different disciplines, I'm sure.
It was so...
I can only imagine.
It should have been in a film. Honestly, it was crazy.
Wow. But you did it. And and that hotel has now launched. I've seen it all over Instagram.
It just opened.
Yeah.
And yes, it's funny. Do you know the other thing I like doing is I tell you what I do like doing is firstly, I never think of myself as, you were going back to your question about success.
Yes, my question to you was about how do you ever look back at your career and this incredible business that you've created, and do you stop and reflect and think, I've done this. This is extraordinary. So what are your thoughts on that?
I sort of feel like, to be completely honest, yes, of course. I think there are times when I think, gosh, we opened the hotel, our first hotel in New York City. I mean,
it's wild.
I am from Queanbeyan.
Yes, you are.
If you know Queanbeyan. I am from Queanbeyan, which is it's population of 20,000 people. So I am from there, and I've opened a hotel in New York City. Yes, I felt proud.
You need a moment.
I left last week. I walked out that front door. I did feel proud. Honestly, it was like probably the first time ever I've sort of thought like, oh my God, it's done.
I did this.
And then I left and I got into the taxi, and I remember on the way to the airport thinking, gosh, I should have done that a different way. But you know what? Next time.
Yeah, there will be a next
but
time.
I only recently I've sort of stopped and sort of thought about where I am and where I want to be.
That is one of my questions, by the way.
And where I want to go.
Yeah. Where do you want to go?
People often say, gosh, you've done so many different projects and so many nice things. Do you want to stop and retire? And I think, to retire, and I think, it's not, I've never thought about that. I want to just sort of keep on sort of creating it as much as I can until I can. And so, so I have moments where recently I have sort of stopped and reflected, and I think I needed to stop and think about it and just for that moment, just appreciate where I am at that moment, because I can't be too hard on myself all the time.
It's exhausting.
And I think it is exhausting. And I think you're going to burn yourself out if you just keep on going, I can do better, I can do better, I can do better. But if you don't stop and go, actually, that was good.
Yeah, it was good.
You will lose who you are. You will lose that sense of yourself, because, gosh, we're only here for a very short period of time. We only do what we love for a very short period of time. Just appreciate that moment. And then you can change, you can do something afterwards, but appreciate that very moment. Just stop and breathe. And someone said to me recently, just take a deep breath before you leave your project. Take a deep breath, inhale it, and then you can leave.
Because once a project is birthed, it really isn't ours anymore. You work on this project.
It is. You're so right. It's like a child.
It really is. I mean, every project, I feel like it's my baby.
Yeah. Yes.
And I've worked on it, and sometimes for, 2 or 3 years. And then when I just do residential, but when the client then moves into the house, suddenly it's not my baby anymore. No. And it's a really...
And all their things go in. Yes. And their personal things. They think, why is that lamp there?
Exactly.
Why is that photo frame there?
That's right. So it is important to take a moment to take stock because design is transformative.
Yes.
And I think when you work on a project like a hotel, it's even more theatrical and exciting. And so it is important to take stock and enjoy it and be present with it.
Everything that we do is passion. It's all about feelings, how we look at things and how things touch. I love the sense of touch, and not only that, but also the sense of smell and even hearing. Sometimes when you do padded walls in dining rooms, I like that sound those things give.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or, it sort of makes you think completely differently. I kind of interacting with all my senses.
So when you approach a project, are you thinking about it holistically from all the elements?
I am.
All the senses?
Yeah, always.
That's
how, movement, walking through.
Do you think that links back to your days in fashion? The way fabric forms and moves.
Oh, you're so on it. Yes. I remember sort of looking at things, you do the entire collection and there's like 100 and something pieces and you look and you think, gosh, I need to edit 30%. Need to get rid of 30%. And I remember sort of looking at things and putting things together, and the layering was really important. And I remember being, gosh, you got to be your harshest critic in fashion. Yeah. So you've got to know which pieces to remove. And so it feels like a bit like that in interiors. You've got to you can't throw everything at it. You've got to have some restraint.
Absolutely. Yeah, definitely. I want to circle back again to the practice and stay there just for a little bit longer. You have a studio now, a team of 33 people.
Yeah.
How are you as a leader? How do you lead people? Because it's very different to be an interior designer and be creative and come up with concepts and sell concepts and storytell. But then to run a business, a successful business at that, takes a whole different set of skills. So how are you at running the business and leading?
I like to understand what their skills are.
The team's
skills, because everyone has a different skill set. So trying to sort of understand what their skills are and also what their passion is. I discovered there's a new junior who started recently and she was very quiet, very gentle, kind of hid from the team, and I sat with her, and I quite like I like walking around and sitting with everyone because we have a very open office. My desk is the same as everyone else's. It's not closed off. We're all together and we all communicate, which is great. But I like walking around and I like sort of sitting with them. I like sort of seeing what they're doing, what they're working. We draw together, we sketch together. I like all of that. Anyway, so I sat with her and, talking about rug designs and about, trying to understand, trying to explain to her about how rug designs work, because rug design is actually quite difficult. It's not just about, it's a plain color. If you want something that's different, it takes a lot of thought and takes a long time to create. And what's it like with the furniture on top? What do you see? What you don't see? What are the negative spaces of the design? Is the color too strong? Is it, et cetera, et cetera. Anyway, so I left her with that thought and I came back, a few days later and she was like, oh, I was thinking about what you said and I sort of did a few sketches and she produced all these amazing things. And now she's my sort of star rug designer. She's amazing.
And that all came from that conversation.
Just one little conversation and she came out of her shell and she created all these things and she was fantastic.
I have goosebumps and you know why she's fantastic? Because you gave her a soft place to land.
I hope so.
Yeah. Because you enlightened her, but you also gave her confidence to try.
Yes.
And to be, because being creative is so confronting.
Yes.
It's actually super hard to be a creative.
Yeah.
It's very easy to check P&Ls and check if a business is doing well, but to foster a space, a safe space for a team to try things, I think is special. Yeah. And you do that for people. So
I hope so. I mean, people did that with me. So I hope that resonates with people. The other thing I really enjoy doing, which probably does drive them a little bit crazy, is I do like my own time to myself in the studio. I like looking at the projects on the boards. I like rearranging things. So, with the floor plans in the middle and the images above and the fabrics. And I quite like rearranging stuff as well. And, I think, any design gets developed over time.
And it does. I've had to learn to allow things to live in the chaos of design.
Yes.
And it's okay to be in the chaos of it. And from the chaos comes the clarity, but that needs time. And you can't rush it.
You can't rush it.
Yeah.
And you can change things many, many times. Even, what it's like, even with installation, even though you have it all planned, everything's planned, every side table, every lampshade, generally, and during an installation, what it's like, it's pretty close. But there are moments when I walk in and go, do you know what? That lamp's not right there. This is better there. Let's move the table from here to there. Let's bring out the dining table. And that's kind of fine too.
Absolutely.
I like that.
I say to clients all the time, the space tells you what it needs.
Yeah.
So there's only so much planning you can do in 2D and even 3D form. But when you're in the space, you have to feel it. That's why I love being on site.
It's another sense.
It's another sense. Exactly.
Yeah, that
spatial sense, that spatial awareness. So
spatial awareness is great. Gosh,
it's magical.
It's all about, and then when you walk into that house, when you've finished the project, and sometimes I quite like going in on my own without the clients and just taking in the feeling that room gives me.
What do you want someone to feel when they walk into a
Honestly,
space
it could be, this
by you?
might sound cheesy, but I want them to feel relaxed and feel enlightened. I want them to feel.
I love that. But what is that?
It feels like I want them to be able to feel, when they walk in, to feel like they can be who they want to be and feel like they can think how they want to think. And that, for me, is the number one thing. It's like when a bedroom, for example, is cozy and soft and calm, and I love that feeling. I'm a bit of an introvert, so I quite like my own space and my own time. And often I would go to my room, and I'm very happy just to lay on my bed, maybe with my dogs, having a moment to, stop, to absorb and to think about that day or what I'm going to do or that moment or, even nothing. But I think rooms should give you that ability to feel those things.
I love that. That's so beautiful. Let's talk about evolution.
Yes.
How do you think your style has evolved over time? From when you first began?
It's so interesting. Gosh. When I first started, I used to go to this place called Kempton Park and Kempton Park Markets, which is on A3 in South London. And it's like an antique fair. And, you got to get there very early, like at 7 a.m. And you're often with a torch trying to sort of rummage through trucks of stuff which is coming from Europe. And I used to sort of love, and I still love doing those things. And I like that sort of quirky mix of old and new. And I remember sort of way back when I first started looking at interiors, I was beginning, I had this sort of overwhelming love for mid-century furniture, which a lot of people have. So there's nothing unique about that. But for me, it was something like a new discovery, because in Australia, we didn't have mid-century furniture. We didn't grow up with mid-century furniture. No one talked about mid-century furniture back in
it's all the rage
1970s.
now.
No one. And so for me, it was like a new discovery, even though it had already been discovered. But for me, it was a new discovery. And so I had this weird kind of obsession with it, and really started to research a lot about mid-century and the designers of mid-century furniture. But at the same time, I was still going to Kempton Park Antique Race Course for the antique markets. And I had this sort of weird juxtaposition of, mid-century pieces versus kind of flea market finds.
Love that.
And I don't know how or where or when this all happened, but I started putting the two together, and I kind of trained my eye in a way to learn how to make those things work together.
That's very hard to do.
And it's quite hard to do. And it took a long time. And I promise you, there were a lot of failures. There were a lot of failures where I sort of bought things in the markets and I put them in. I thought, oh my God, they look terrible. And then sort of over time, I sort of learned I trained myself to find particular things and to put those things in a particular way and curate them in a particular way. So
what are your top three things that you look for in vintage furniture, for instance, or antiques? What are you looking for when you're looking for those pieces?
First, things I sort of look at is I look at the refinement of the design. So, for example, I'm going to give you an example. Examples are great. You look at sideboards, for example, like a rosewood sideboard. There are many, many, many different versions. I often look for something which has been very well considered, So firstly, the design of the door fronts, not overly designed. I like it when it's got like clean edges. It's like a very thoughtful piece, not overly detailed with handles and whatnot. And then I look at veneers, and the way the veneers have been cut. So sometimes the veneers are so beautifully book matched that the veneers speak for themselves. So there are a lot of different things I look at when I start looking at individual pieces. For example, I love Giaponti, and I think there are many things about Giaponti that I absolutely love, but not everything. Sometimes it's a bit over-Italian, over designed, and a bit too pointed, a bit too something. So not everything. And the same for my own things, it's not for everyone, sometimes it's too much, sometimes it's not enough. And that's all fine, it's about, and the same for antiques, the same for flea market finds. It's not everything is great. Some things work really beautifully. Some things don't. I think once you sort of train your own eye and you sort of believe in what you believe in, things sort of come together.
I love that. Want to talk about home now?
Yes.
And your home and your sanctuary. You have a beautiful farm, Keeper's Farm.
Yes, with my husband, Sebastian Scott.
With your husband, Sebastian.
And my two dogs.
And your two dogs. I got to meet Sebastian last year. We had a fun time in Milan. What does home mean to you?
It's sanctuary. It's a place I can feel free. I can feel relaxed. I love cooking. Oh my God. I'm very happy to spend 2 hours cooking to eat in 3 minutes. There's nothing more satisfying. Because I'm very methodic. So I like it all to be very methodic. And I have the music playing. I can do a bit of a dance in front of the oven.
Oh, I love
I kind of love that. I can play with my dogs. They will often sit because they want obviously the meat off the kitchen counter.
Of course.
I kind of like the whole thing of being yourself, isn't it? That is like,
absolutely.
That is such a treasure and a privilege to have moments where you can just be yourself.
Yeah. It's freedom.
It's freedom.
It's the ultimate freedom.
And what we do is you're creating these spaces for your clients to give them that. And everything that you do is different. So for example, a house is so different to the hotel. The hotel, people want to go out in the hotel. They want to live in a place which they don't live in their home. Don't live like at home. They want to be entertained and they want to have fun. And so make it fun, make it fantastic, do things that they would never do in their home.
Yeah. What a wonderful project though, to be able to do that, to have that level of expression of freedom. I think as a designer, it's probably the greatest joy to be able to have. Did you have constraints on that project, or did you have a level of creative freedom that you could exercise?
Do you know what's interesting? I had no constraints.
Oh, that's like the ultimate.
None at all. It was like, the other thing that Alan always said to me is that, Peter, you don't want to be tea with milk. Don't be ordinary.
Oh.
He said, you can be ordinary at home, but don't be ordinary here.
Don't be tea with milk.
Don't be tea with milk.
I'm trying to process that. Don't be tea with milk.
It's great. It was such a great thing.
He sounds like a wonderful character.
Yeah, he was great.
Yeah.
And so, the rooms are fabulous, and, people only spend 3 or 4 nights in a hotel room or one night. I mean, make it great. Make it so different to your home.
That's
because it's a little bit of a fantasy.
It is a fantasy. That's right.
But yeah, so that it does sort of, there weren't any constraints. They were very much like, go as far as you can possibly go, and then let's see where we end up, and then we can always go back a bit
and edit.
Yeah.
How do you deal with the business side of things? Do you have a manager that helps you, supports you, or?
I got a very good team of people around me, which is great, and also Sebastian helps me a lot. So he gives me always gives me great advice. And my mom also gave me great advice when I was little. She always said to me, just remember that no one's business is yours. Their business is not your business. You don't want to get caught up in other people's sort of negativity, basically.
Absolutely. I love that. It's good advice. Their business is not your business.
Yeah. Their business is not yours.
What does the future look like for you? And do you have any grand visions or things that you haven't quite achieved yet that are still?
So, I mean, we got some nice things going on. We have a few more of the hotels to do, which is great.
Have you enjoyed working on a hotel?
Oh, it was great.
Okay.
I was lucky because it was such a creative hotel, so that was good. And then we have some nice residential projects, and so all of that side is kind of good. Personally, I think I need to stop and just sort of take a bit more time for myself now that's big things over with. And I think I'm going to pick up my sketchbook again.
Good.
And I've got all that ready. But I feel like I don't want to sort of overplan it because I don't really know. I don't think anyone really knows where they're going.
No.
I'm really happy with where I am at the moment.
That's good.
That's a good thing.
That's a great thing.
Yeah.
That's the privilege.
But it's not always like that. Like a few months ago, I wasn't, because you're in the middle of an installation and it's like, oh my gosh. And there are like 1 million people involved in the installing of a hotel. So it's quite a stressful thing. And so, like I said, that wave is good.
Yeah. It's actually surrendering to the wave is good.
Surrender to the wave. Yeah. It's good.
To the wave. Yeah. I could be here all day with you, Peter.
Me too.
Quite seriously.
I loved it. It was my first podcast.
Oh, you were brilliant.
I loved it.
My very last question.
Yes.
It's our signature question
yes,
to
tell
every
me.
guest. What does Build Beautiful mean to you?
I think build beautiful means to me, it means build. So I like I think creating a space that you feel safe in and a place that you can think in. And I kind of like that, it's just all about, trying to make what you have around you as nice as you can possibly have it. And no matter how big or small the room is, or how big or small your garden is, or how big or small your terrace is, if you can put a nice chair on your balcony and look out, that for me is just as precious as a big sitting room or whatever it is. And just be humble and be happy with what you have at that very moment.
That's the perfect answer. That was amazing.
Thank you so much. I really loved it. So thank you so much.
I'm so glad you enjoyed it. And you were
I hope
brilliant.
I didn't waffle on too much.
No, not at all. It was honestly, it was a wonderful conversation. I always have more questions than when I start, but I am conscious of time and no, but thank you. I'm so grateful, truly. It was so good. Thank you for listening to Build Beautiful. If this conversation resonated with you, I'd love it if you'd follow the show, leave a review, or share it with someone who's building something meaningful. It matters more than you know. Follow us on Instagram at Build Beautiful Podcast. Until next time, keep creating with intention, and together we build beautiful.